Hey, how you doing? Today we got a great disruptor, a truth seeker, and a digital maverick, literally. Please welcome Maverick Bailey, the creator and founder of the explosive platform Maverick Approach. He's a rising powerhouse of controversial, thought-provoking, and mind-bending content, covering everything from the mainstream actually won't touch, from alternative news to conspiracy theories to politics, finance, and yes, my personal favorite, crypto. Maverick isn't just starting conversations, he's flipping the whole table. With over 180,000 plus followers and counting, his fearless takes and sharp insights are igniting curiosity and awakening minds across the globe. If you're not already following him, hit him up at Maverick Approach right now. Like, share, and buckle up. But that's not all. Bailey is also the founder of Jetset Token, a revolutionary blockchain AI platform that's set to transform the future of travel. Using smart tech to personalize your journey and optimize bookings in ways the industry hasn't even imagined yet. So get ready to dive deep, challenge the norm, and explore the edges of what's possible. This is the Carmichael Effect, and this is Maverick Bailey. Welcome, man.
Thank you. That was a great intro.
Well,
I like that. Yeah, that's a nice build up.
Well, I was trying to work it good for you, man.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you for coming in.
You make me sound important. So,
well, you kind of are.
I guess, and man. I'm just doing my part.
You're growing and you're moving up, and
yeah,
I love your content, by the way. I want to start with that because that's what kind of inspired to write that. I mean, there's way more, but
yeah,
try to get it all into one little grouping.
Yeah.
No, man, I follow your content. I've watched, I've known you, almost a year now, roughly.
Yeah.
And I've seen you grow, and you're touching on subjects that I not only can relate to, but some wonderful content that just motivates and inspires and moves people, which is, kind of what this is all about.
Right. No, yeah, I appreciate that. And it's been a journey. I've been doing it for 2 years now. I'm usually behind the scenes. But now that, this whole thing kind of just blew up, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I had a lot of knowledge, and I wanted to get in front of a camera and share what I, kind of researched and found out over the years. And we all know since 2020, things haven't been the same.
Yeah.
Right. So I think now it's the perfect time. And I think everybody kind of feels the same way. So I'm just doing my part.
What were you doing before? You said in front of the camera, were you doing stuff behind the camera? Because that's something I don't know.
Yeah, well, technically, yes. But I started out in front of the camera. Like, I did acting when I was 4 years old. I did a lot of commercials,
Do you remember those times when you were
I do.
A little bit?
A little bit, yeah. Well, a lot, because I did it until I was like 13-ish, around that time. So I did a lot of stuff, Nickelodeon, Disney, you name it, JCPenney, Campbell Soup, all that stuff, right? So once I got out of that, then I just kind of, shied away from the camera for a long time, got into sports, played some college ball for a little bit, and then from there transitioned into real estate. So I did, real estate, luxury real estate.
I didn't even know that. That's what this is all about.
There you go.
Get to know who you are and what your background is. No, that's cool. Yeah.
So I did that for about 10 plus years. Luxury real estate. I had one of the biggest real estate companies in Los Angeles, and so yeah, it was cool, man. So then got into the content stuff after a couple years.
And you said a couple years ago you started doing
that.
Yeah. And just because you wanted an outlet, or what was the turning point? Like, what'd you say? Like, hey, I want to start my own channel, or just was it for you personally to express yourself, or was it to kind of create a following?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say so that more so just sharing knowledge. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but when it came in, to finance, when it came into certain things that people really were resonating with, and kind of the truth telling, kind of outlets, it was something I've always thought about. Right, I've always had a different perspective on things. But now I think that people are more open to these things versus 5-6 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
So I wasn't as comfortable talking about these topics and whatnot, but I always knew that I wanted to share these things.
So when you were let's go back to the business, as I came from the Hollywood world myself, and 33 years later, here we are. But did you stuff those thoughts and feelings back then? Or, because we know that that side is not as open to. You do a lot of conspiracy stuff, and
Yeah.
you do a lot
Conspiracies.
of like, yeah.
Conspiracy.
You know where the word conspiracy came from, right? They created
Yeah.
it when they created the CIA.
Correct.
So it's very interesting that it's used against the truth.
Yeah, and that's
right?
the thing. A lot of people don't know that when it comes to conspiracies, right? So when JFK got murdered, that's kind of like what kicked it off, and the CIA created this narrative
to shut down the real talk,
right? To shut it down. Let's call it conspiracies. That way, when anybody gets close to the truth, they'll be called crazy,
which makes it look like you're crazy. Yeah,
exactly.
Which it worked for a long time.
It did.
But I love the fact that you yourself and there's a lot of people like you and doing the similar thing that are really opening our minds to. Because it's something I believed in a long time, and I don't do a channel like you do. I'm not specific on one thing. I'm here to get this. I'm here to get the real you and get this part of it, and that's what I think my purpose is for the this part of it.
Right.
But I totally, I served in Navy intelligence. I had a top secret clearance. I was interviewed by the CIA and all this stuff. I have a whole background in that, so. I saw behind the curtain, when I was in the military.
Are we able to talk about that?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we can. Yeah. Actually, there's a TikTok. One of my most popular TikTok videos is about my interview with the CIA for 2.5 hours.
Wow.
And I didn't go. Obviously, I'm here. I probably probably wouldn't have gotten out. Because it was different. It was intense. It was a lot like I always say. It was like. Two guys in black suits, like Men in Black. These two guys come in and they locked me in a room and basically asked me a lot of questions.
So this is to get into the CIA.
They wanted me to join the CIA.
That's funny because they reached out to me.
Did they really?
I didn't tell you about that, right?
No.
So
shut up, really?
Yeah. So okay. So long story short, I got a DM from somebody who worked at the Department of Homeland Security for about 25 years.
Oh wow! How long ago was this, by the way?
This is about, I want to say maybe 3-4 months ago.
Oh, just recently. Okay.
Recently. So,
all right. Now I'm questioning, like, well, okay, let me hear it.
Right. So basically, this person DM'd me and was like, hey, I really like your videos. You're actually putting pieces together that some of my buddies at the FBI didn't know. And they kind of watch your videos and they found out certain things just by watching your videos. I'm like, really interesting. He's like, yeah, it looks like you have a gift and you might be good for the CIA or one of the other departments.
Wow.
And you should come down to Langley and just talk to the agents. And
that's legit. Langley's
right?
legit.
Yeah. So I'm like, whoa, this is serious. So that hasn't happened. I've been told many different things. I've been told not to go. I've been told to go. There's a lot of things to think about, right? And then that's the thing too. I think that if I did go, right, then people would look at me weird and be like, well, now you're an asset. Now you're a part of what you're trying to expose. I'm like, well, yes and no. I can't say everybody in the CIA is corrupt. I can't say the entire government is corrupt. There's many pieces.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that if I was to go, it would be to change things and disrupt things.
What if I told you it wasn't the government? Which you probably already know that. It's the corporations.
True. It's a corporation.
So the government's not running the country.
Right.
And that's one thing I learned. And I remember going to my admiral. He was like the highest admiral on the East Coast. He was the admiral of the 6th Fleet. And I said, why can't we tell the people the truth? And he was like, literally said, they can't handle the truth. Because, it's not run by...
Like the movie, right? You can't handle the truth.
You can't handle the truth. A Few Good Men or something? Yeah.
Right.
This is before way before the movie came out. Well, I would say this about your connection with that. My time was way before the internet, before any easy background, any cell phones, any of that. And they knew my whole childhood when I met with them. And that's what freaked me out. They knew my childhood friends. And they told me they'd been watching me since I was 17. I was now like 22 when I met with them. Wow. And so they already know about you. That's what I want to say.
Yeah,
so
which I figured.
Which,
I'm all over social media.
Yeah, so you're an easy target. You're easy to find.
Right.
And so I don't know. I don't know what the meeting would be. I would just say it might be something like to work with them, but I would be like yourself. I'd be curious or optimistic or skeptical of it, basically,
Right.
because you don't know what they want. You're not sure.
But yeah, I have no idea. I mean,
that's crazy. They reached out to you. Did you like find out if that was a true source? Did you like investigate?
It was a true source.
Okay.
And I do my digging. So this person is very credible.
Yeah, your background stuff is pretty deep, man. I'm like, how do you find all that shit?
Just research, man. I think that, using these tools that we have as far as social media, AI, the information's there, right?
Yeah.
You just have to look. And I think we get thrown into so many different areas. Our feed is, pulling us this way and that way. I think we're very distracted. So I think it comes down to focus. So you just really have to focus on, looking behind the curtain, putting pieces together, and then just pointing out the obvious. I think, common sense is not so common anymore.
Well, I think with the release of the JFK files and stuff like that, even though I don't think everything's been released, and but the talk is, it's easier to talk about it now than it was 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 60 years ago.
Right.
So I think that's you have a great platform and a great outlet for that now, and it's more acceptable. Yeah. And I think we're waking up to the fact, and that's the whole thing about the effect of like this show and people like you and I, that you're waking people up enough to think about. I learned in the military, and I was like I said, I was in the Navy, but I learned early on, and one of my superior officers said, always question authority. Mm-hmm. Always question authority, and that's the thing that I've been doing, I think, all my life, because you're never getting the truth. You're getting their truth. You're getting what they want, but you're not getting the real truth. And I love the fact that you're digging way deeper. Yeah. And is it scary sometimes? Do you ever feel like, I could get threatened, I could be in trouble for this, or it's like, what's the fine line? Because I know some people get taken down, or they get,
Yeah, not so much. I mean, for one, preparation eliminates fear. So you always have to be prepared. So I always prepare myself on all fronts, health-wise, financially, whatever the case may be, just, physically. I'm never really afraid to say what is on my mind. I think that it's a perfect time to do so, and I think there's strength in numbers. So, I'm not doing anything, special. I'm just pointing out the obvious. There's a lot of other people saying a lot of other things that, we've all been thinking. There's a lot of people who, who've done the research. I've done the research, and just putting out the information. The way I do it, my approach is just, my approach on things. And, at the end of the day, I want you to have critical thinking. And, I'm not telling people what to think. I'm just laying out all the cards, laying out all the evidence, and you put the pieces together, and you have some discernment.
I think that's a great, I was talking about that earlier. I think that's a great option, because the people that have only one-sided opinion, like you're either far left or far right. And if you're not in the middle somewhere, to let other people think about, make your own decision. Right. And that's what I'm saying. I don't want to make my show specifically one way or the other, because I want to give you information to think about it, and you come to your own conclusion.
Yeah, and that's what I do at the end of my videos. I always ask the question, so what do you think? Yeah. Let me know below in the comments, because I want to hear from you guys what your perspective is.
Yeah, like you did that Bitcoin thing yesterday, and I reached out to you. I'm like, man, this is crazy, because and I was like, I was a part of that early Bitcoin thing.
I know you were telling me that, how you bought it back when. When did you buy it first?
Well, it was crazy. I was doing a lot of coaching. I was doing a lot of speaking around the country, and I got a call from a guy from New York and said, hey, I can't be there. I can't do this. Can you go speak at this Bitcoin seminar in Beverly Hills, 2010. And
oh wow, it just came out.
And and I had no idea what. I'm like, Bitcoin, what the heck is that? Nobody knew. We didn't have it on our phone. We didn't have any platforms for it at all. Right. So I did. They paid me, I don't know, like $3,500 for an hour to go speak, and I'm like, sure, I'll do that. Right. And I was basically the English interpreter for the Japanese who was bringing it over. And it was pretty wild. It was
you had it back then, and
had a big dinner, And had I invested then, I would have been a lot better shape.
Right.
You kick yourself, but then you think, it was like one of those foreign things that I had no idea. Nobody knew what it was. Nobody knew. And the way we talked about it, they're saying we're bringing it in. It's like a digital currency, right? And to everybody back then, it was just like, what is that?
Yeah. Do you think the government's behind it?
I do now, because I had access to, well, can I say this? I had access to the dark web in 1999.
Okay.
Someone I can't remember. I was working on a film project, and when you're on those projects, you meet people of all. I think it was. I want to say it was a retired police officer or somebody that had something to do with intel.
Okay.
And they gave me access to get on the dark web. Well, Bitcoin was on the dark web back then, and they were selling stuff we probably can't talk about.
Which a lot of people don't know is that, when the white paper came out for Bitcoin, it actually predates that from the time it came out.
You said something like 91. What was that? What year was that one?
Yeah, well, technically it was shown in a video game called Space Quest 4 back in 1991.
Okay, yeah.
And, it had the same logo that it does now, right? And these coins in the video game were called buckazoids. And it was a currency. It was a, interplanetary currency, right? So, fast forward now, it shows up on a Reddit post, and people are like, wait a minute. This game, how is this possible?
Right.
Right? So, but then if you follow the breadcrumbs, there's a few people linked to that game who actually may have a hand in Bitcoin. So you have Hal Finney is the first person who received, a Bitcoin transaction from Satoshi Nakamoto.
Right.
Then you have, two other key people that's part of Sierra Online, which is developer of that game. So one guy's named Rod Nakamoto and Satoshi Usaka.
Right.
So Satoshi Nakamoto.
Names together, right?
Right.
Go
so
figure, yeah.
So one guy was a developer, another guy was an executive at the video game place. So it could be a multitude of things happening. It could be 3 people, could be 2 people. I don't think Satoshi Nakamoto is just one person.
Right. Do you think it's a government or a military thing? Who do you think?
It could be because there's other white papers that came out before the Bitcoin white paper.
It was used for trading like illegal goods and drugs and things and stuff before, from what I saw.
Yeah, so
right? And there's certain people have talked about this.
Yeah, Silk Road kind of popularized it.
Right.
But before that, there's other white papers that came out talking about eCash, which is a peer-to-peer transaction. This was in 1997. So, and then the first DLT patent, which is the blockchain technology that we use today, that was filed in 1988 by David Schwartz, who's the CTO of Ripple. So people were saying it might be him. So it's a lot of different, key pieces that you can put together.
Wait, Ripple was around back then as well?
Not Ripple, but the guy who's the CTO now, he actually he worked for the NSA.
Okay.
So the NSA actually uses the same, they created the algorithm, the SHA-256 that the Bitcoin algorithm uses.
Right.
So people were saying the NSA could be behind it. And then it's funny that David Schwartz actually filed the patent in 1988. He worked with the NSA, 1 + 1 = 2. So
it all kind of, you think about it, it all makes sense. And then, so here's a big question for this. I think about this in various subject matter, but on this one specifically, why do you think they hide it? What is the gain? What do they gain from that? Why are these things covered up? Do you think? What's your opinion on that?
I mean, when it comes to crypto, I would say it could be a form of control, or it could be a test to see if we take into the new system. I always call Bitcoin BTC the beta test coin, to see if we take to this new system. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. It's just a tool, just like anything else, right? A gun could be bad or good depending on how you use it. So I think it is a way to become, self-governed, get your sovereignty back and become your own bank with DeFi. But it also could be used for other nefarious purposes as well. So it's all in how you use it. So I think that when it comes to that, it could be something, if we're not careful, we can be falling into a trap. But I'm an advocate for crypto. I'm super bullish on crypto. I love crypto. Obviously, I have my own cryptocurrency. And as a grand scale of things, I think they have to lay it out. It's about duality. I think they have to give you a choice. They have to give you, the good and the bad, and you choose. Everything is about influence.
So how do you think the banks are going to be involved in this then? Do you think they'll buy up enough crypto to offer it, and like XRP, for example?
For sure.
I mean, that's the one most talked about right now.
Right, for sure.
And that could change our currency and the way we do transactions.
Yeah.
So would they do something like, in your opinion, I'll sell you crypto at this whatever rate, and then they make a percentage on the back end? I mean, how does a bank win in this? 'Cause
Yeah,
I've
I
been
think
thinking
that.
about that.
Yeah, I think that they're gonna have their fees and whatnot. It's a large barrier to entry when it comes to learning all the lingo, and people are just lost. That's why I do education. So I think when the banks make it easier, yes, it's gonna make it easier, but they're gonna have their fees. They're gonna have their hand in it. It is what it is.
Money. They're gonna
have to make money.
They're gonna have to take their little cut.
Yeah,
for sure.
and a U.S. Regulator just came out and said that they don't have to answer to the Fed as far as being self-custodial, so they can interact with
they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, so the banks can just start buying right now and don't have to answer to the Fed. So that's that's pretty bullish to me.
It appears they have been buying.
Yeah, which they're telling us that now they can do it.
Another whale bought whatever today.
Yeah, that's probably J.P. Morgan.
It's an encrypted, but it's like for 10 million or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so I think that when it comes to the banks, they're gonna have their hooks in it and whatnot. It is gonna create a lot of adoption, which we need. But at the same time, I always tell people be self-custodial, and that's hold your own crypto. Don't let anybody else hold your crypto, because when it comes to like Robinhood or banks or anybody else,
so you're saying have a DeFi wallet or something.
There you go.
Right.
Exactly.
Do you have any that you like that you want to recommend?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. There's MetaMask. There's Exodus. Trust Wallet, and those are hot wallets. And then as far as cold wallets, you can use Treasure, you can use Ledger, Nano Ledger. So yeah, those are my picks.
That's good. You know what you're talking about.
a little bit.
No, I got into it a few years ago, and then I got out of it for a little while, and I'm back in, and I'm learning every. There's such a learning curve with it. And I'm an older generation, so I'm not as computer savvy as you are, I'm sure. And it's challenging. Yeah. But I like I like what it's going to bring is a freedom for us, where you can make transactions in seconds as opposed to and not pay astronomical fees like it used to take with the banking system. I like the freedom that it's going to give us. That's
when you send a wire overseas, I mean, it takes 2 to 5 days. I mean, now it's 2 to 5 seconds.
Quite a bit of money too.
Costs a lot of money.
Yeah. On how, I mean, even doing a wire locally, it's 24 hours, or even sending a transaction. I do a lot of stuff online with my customers, and I'm like, it still takes sometimes a day to clear. 24 hours. They hold it. They make a commission on it, whatever. Right, they make
their money, their trade on it. And
we know what that's all about.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Wells Fargo got busted for that, but
yeah, they did.
So yeah. All right, moving on. What are you working on now? What's your latest project? What's your next thing you're doing?
Right now, I have a community called Break the Matrix, where I'm taking people from my community, all my followers, and putting them into a educational platform to where we can share codes amongst each other. I can teach them crypto. I can share like all my books, all my classes, all in one place. So, and then from there, just have, meetups eventually. And then I just want to build a community. So it's called Break the Matrix. I want to teach, how to be, self-governed, get your sovereignty, how to become a U.S. national, all that stuff.
Now, is that going to be a course or just a community?
Yeah, it's a community. It's community that you can subscribe to.
You mentioned courses. What you're teaching courses? I know. I think on crypto is one.
Right.
What else you got going on there?
Real estate hacks. How to start in real estate without a license or money. I did that for 12 plus years. I started with no money, zero connections, and then built a 7-figure business from that. So just teaching people little life hacks that they can use, because I think that when it comes to trying to get into spaces like crypto or real estate, you think you need like tons of money. And if you have the right strategies, you don't. I think you're just all about positioning yourself correctly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, you're doing a lot.
Yeah, I am. I'm doing my part. So yeah.
Where'd you grow up? What's your background of that? Because you said you were would you grow up in LA then?
I did grow up in LA. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I grew up in LA, born and raised there.
You're a good looking kid, and you like got into the Hollywood world, were you doing commercials first or modeling? What were you doing?
Yeah, I was doing commercials. So I started when I was 4. And I told my mom one day I wanted to do commercials. Nobody forced me to do anything. I was like, hey, that's what I want to do. So I was dancing in front of the TV all day. And she's like, okay, cool. You want to do that? So got me an agent. And then from there, the rest is history. Just started doing a lot of commercials, Did a lot of stuff for, again, like I said, Nickelodeon, Disney.
How many years did you do it? How many years were you in that world?
Yeah, that was probably almost 10 years. So I started when I was 4.
Okay.
And then I went until like 12-ish, 13-ish. And then from there, I was just like, this isn't fun anymore. I was thinking like an adult, and I was like, I still want to be a kid. You know, I was exposed to a lot of stuff, and I was just like, I feel like an adult. And thinking like that at the age of 12, 13, I was just like, I'm good. So I got out of it.
I think that I look back and I think I have 2 boys, and I got them in when they're young, and I think by the time they're 8 or 9 or 10, like, Daddy, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm like, okay, you're out. I'm not going to force it on you. But they had a nice, they had a nice little Coogan account and all that stuff. You know what that is?
Yeah, I do. I do. That's a crazy story, Coogan, how his parents stole all the money.
Robbed him from that money, yeah.
Crazy, man.
I forgot his first name.
Yeah, I forgot his name, but Coogan,
Coogan, yeah. Coogan's an account you have to have for minors, if you guys don't know. But, we had the Coogan account, and they had a little trust fund and stuff. They were set up. It was good, but they just didn't like it. And I'm like, I can understand. But I was going to ask you, like, do you think that background, because you're very comfortable on the camera, you're very calm and just very connected. That's cool. Thank you for that. But did that childhood, the youth and growing up in that world, did it help you become more confident, more aware of that? Of your presence?
I would say so. Just growing up in that, I was never shy in front of the camera, but then off the camera, I was shy as a kid. Funny, it was kind of weird like that.
Introvert, extrovert.
Yes. Yeah, so as soon as the lights, cameras, action, I was on. But behind the camera, I was the exact opposite, and a little shy, and kind of kept to myself and whatnot. It's kind of this again, the duality, which is kind of coming full circle, because I really believe in duality. So that's kind of how I was, and I just grew up in front of the camera, so it was always comfortable.
So when you saw the stuff, I know the Hollywood world very well, and I'm sure you saw some things that are not too fun, because there's a darker side, or an uncomfortable side to part of that. Did that also inspire you to do what you're doing now? Did that like motivate you to like, hey, I want to shed some light on some of these subjects, some of these topics that I saw as a kid or saw as a young adult?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I didn't see too much at growing up as a kid. Thank God.
You got lucky, yeah.
Yeah, thank God. Yeah. So I think that, but just being around in the circles, like as I got older, hearing these stories, going to parties, a lot of these celebrities are weird. And these people aren't who you think they are. And I've heard, all the Diddy stories a long time ago. Right. Other people that you're hearing about now, I knew about that shit a long time ago.
It's always been going on. That's the funny thing. Everybody thinks it's probably new. It's a new thing.
It's not new.
It's been happening for
a long time.
Older than me.
Right.
And I heard stories when I was a kid. I started when I was 24 and went to Hollywood. And it was...
The casting couch is very real.
And I avoided those, I went to a couple of those parties until they got uncomfortable, and like, yeah.
Yeah, because there's a party after the party, and you stick around too long.
You end up in a room with like just a few people, and you're going,
everybody gets kicked out, and you're like,
this is not fun anymore,
right?
And if you're an attractive person, then it makes it even more appealing for them, I should say. So
you know what was crazy? Right before Diddy went to jail, I went to a party. I went to there's a party that Drake had for his friend. I think it was his manager.
Okay.
And this is, I want to say 2021. Crazy mansion in Beverly Hills. Right. Everybody was there. Chris Brown, Tory Lanez, everybody was there. So Diddy was there, right?
Oh, yeah.
So he was behind the bar serving drinks to people. I already knew then. I was like, I'm not taking a drink from him. Serious. I saw him. He was like, he's pouring up drinks for everybody. I was like, why is he playing bartender? It's weird.
That is kind of odd, isn't it?
Right? Yeah. Like you have this mega celebrity.
Right? You just knew. You just felt it.
Oh, yeah, I know. I've heard stuff about Diddy a long time ago. I'm like, there's no way I'm taking a drink from him. For sure.
Wow. That's smart of you. You might be in a different situation right now.
Yeah, exactly. So,
You might have more stories to
tell. But
stuff
like that, though, like I'm already, up on game. I was like, you're behind the bar. Yeah, I'm good.
Right on. What are you looking to do now? Like I know you talked about the Matrix or the not. What do you call it? The not.
Oh, Break the Matrix.
Break the Matrix.
Yeah, Break the Matrix is my community.
And then as far as your Instagram, your following, the Maverick Approach.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to do with that? Where do you see that going? What are you looking to do?
Well, I want to expand on media. I think that media is, it's not slowing down, right? As far as the podcast industry, it's, by the end of the year, it's a $30 billion industry worldwide.
Yeah.
So I think that doubling down on that, I love content, I love media, and I want to bring the two together with media and tech. So I'm going to be tokenizing media studios, creator studios, my own content. And tokenization is fractionalized investments on blockchain, how it's represented on blockchain. So you can fractionalize this phone, this microphone, whatever the case may be. So even real estate. So I'm tokenizing real estate as well.
Is that kind of like an NFT thing, or
you could say
that was
kind of
art,
like that,
right?
That's the kind of like that. Yeah. So, but when it comes to fractionalized investments, you can own a piece of a building, not instead of a whole building, right?
Okay.
So you say you wanted to tokenize this building. This is a multi-million-dollar building, but you don't have millions of dollars, but you have maybe 20 grand, maybe 30 grand. You can invest that into the building and get a piece of it and get an ROI on that fractionalized investment.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, you remember old school timeshares?
Yeah.
Kind of like that, but you have ownership. It's just all represented on blockchain now. So you can buy a piece of it and own it.
And you can tokenize anything, like any like tangible.
Right, any real world asset.
Right. Okay.
Even Robinhood, they just filed with the SEC for real world asset tokenization. So it's a $30 billion or $30 trillion industry.
Your own system set up, right? Is that part of your what is the crypto called? The Jetset?
Yeah, Jetset. Yeah, Jetset. We're going to be tokenizing real estate, media, studios, everything that we're going to be.
Tell me more about that. It's about travel, right?
It's an experience-based type of
Jetset. That makes sense,
right? So I want to bring experiences to people. So like think of Airbnb meets Peerspace, and it's all rolled into one. So where you can get a house, a car, chef, all those things, and we curate the experience for you. But also, I want to bring media into the fold, real estate, and have real world assets be a part of that, because again, we're in the physical world, so that's not going anywhere.
Right.
I mean, we do have metaverse, but
yeah,
I think that real world assets and tokenization is the future of finance, media, entertainment, you name it. I think it's going to change the globe.
I like it. I like it a lot. So what do you do for fun when you're not doing all this stuff? What do you like to do? What do you?
I'm pretty simple,
man. Are you a hiker? You get out in nature? What do you do?
Yeah, well, I'm pretty simple. I like to go to the movies. I'm a big movie buff.
Okay.
I love to travel. Obviously.
You have a favorite movie? Do I have to like genre? Like
Back to the Future is my favorite movie.
Really, of all time?
Of all time. It's the best movie on earth ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what is it about that movie that because you can go back in time and relive your life?
I think it's just the allure of it all.
Mm-hmm.
I love the backstory, how they actually put the movie together, because Michael J. Fox wasn't the original guy.
Yeah.
It was Eric Schwartz.
Yeah.
They shot half the movie, and they were like, this isn't working. They had to go back and reshoot it, brought Michael J. Fox into it. He was doing Family Ties at the moment. He was doing, like 23-hour days. He was like getting 1 hour of sleep. It was crazy. So just the whole story of how they built it. And then, of course, the story itself is just amazing. Yeah. So I just love it.
You can't imagine any other way than Michael J. Fox, right? I mean, Eric Stoltz was like, yeah, he's a good actor, but
yeah, it didn't fit. He brought a darker energy.
Not as much comedy, not as much lightness there. Yeah.
Right. So
which I remember hearing that story and seeing the outtakes of his performance or his recording. I think, isn't there like he's in like 2 shots still or supposedly?
No, he did a lot of shots.
The back of his head or something.
Oh, in the original. Yeah. When it came out. Yeah. Some of it. Yeah, some of it.
Yeah, they're like, hey, you're not going to get residuals on that one.
Right.
You got to have that dialogue in there to get any money, but that's wild.
And then the story of like part 2, how Biff took over, it kind of falls into today because they based that character off of Donald Trump.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
So you know how he brought gambling, and he has the same hair. He's a billionaire. Like, if you parallel them two, like, they look exactly alike.
You look way deeper than I do. You like, look beyond what you see, right?
Yeah.
Disney kind of claimed that line, but yeah,
they always put it in the movies. That's why I love movies.
I always think everything has been scripted. There's a control. Well, the original Hollywood is owned actually by Vegas, by the mafia and the CIA.
Right.
They originally funded Hollywood.
Right.
Which is very interesting if you think about it now. They've been writing a script, so to speak, that has dictated all our lives because we're all affected by movies. We're all affected by music and movies, and anything that has been captured on screen. How do you could go back to a place in your life. Where were you when this movie came out?
Right.
What affected you? Like you just said, Back to the Future. That's your movie.
Yeah,
So,
and the DoD actually has a film department. So it's called the Entertainment Media Fund, where they actually work closely with Hollywood. So they have script writers, directors that they work with.
I knew that. I do know. I do remember when the CIA was investing, and they would come in and change where they were the producers, right? So they would come in and change the outcome of the story.
Right.
A lot in the 50s and 60s, I think was a big turning point for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's crazy.
And then Laurel Canyon, you know about Laurel Canyon and everything else with, where Jared Leto, the actor, lives. He lives in a propaganda house. Like they used to use this house for propaganda back in the 40s and 50s and 60s. Yeah.
I've met Jared a few times. I know.
Yeah, he lives in this house because it was decommissioned. Wow. And they used it for propaganda. They used, movies to depict things back then, and it was
that. Wow.
Yeah,
that's in Laurel Canyon. I know like the whole Mulholland Drive and all that stuff with the water rights, and that created Mulholland Drive and a lot of old Hollywood stuff. And there was I go way back to when I got there, like the Black Dahlia was a big mystery, and obviously Maryland and all those. But you're uncovering a lot of these, but like Maryland, the ties with Kennedy and the CIA and the reason she's no longer here. Yeah. So that's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah.
So I'm just seeing our time, how far we're into this, dude. I just want to say thanks again for being here. This is really freaking cool.
No, I appreciate it.
So what inspires you, other than your own projects? What really affects you, or what inspires you the most in your real life?
I get a lot of inspiration from just everyday people, everybody who I interact with. I think that what people go through every day, a lot of friends, family, their resilience, their struggles, ups and downs, I can relate with that. Mm-hmm. So I think that kind of, inspires me to, do what I do. And, because I don't look towards, celebrities, and I don't look towards athletes. I don't glorify
You're not a fan, in other words, of that.
Yeah. It's, certain people here and there, I am I guess you could say a fan of. I love Michael J. Fox. Right. Just because of the movie and what he's been through.
Have you ever met him? You ever gotten to meet him?
No, I never met him. Yeah. I definitely want to meet him.
A different story now, but
exactly
for him. But
right.
I'm sure he's still aware, but just getting big, being around him now would be a bit different. Yeah,
exactly. So but I would say that more so than anything. I think that everyday real life people inspire me. So
that's good. And I know I've met your mother. She's a wonderful lady. So she's somewhat inspiring.
Yeah, she is.
Keeps you in check.
She has. She used to be my manager when I was a kid actor.
I could see that because the way that she talks with you guys, it's like she's got your number.
For sure. She doesn't play around, and I think that's another reason why I was so protected in the industry. Because my mom didn't play any games. She already knew, hey, you're not going into this room by yourself with this person. None of that. So
so she was there for you. That's really important, especially as a child. And you said you started really young,
exactly
or something. Yeah. You don't even know what's going on at that point. So
and growing up into that industry, obviously you're just a kid. You don't know what's going on. It's fun.
Yeah.
You're traveling. You're getting paid. You're getting candy. This, that. You're not really thinking about anything.
You just want to be a kid.
You just want to be a kid, right? And then now look at what happened at Nickelodeon. All the stuff that came out with Dan Schneider and all these other people, and they have this thing called the Creep Club. Do you know about the Creep Club?
No, I don't know about that. I know there's some stuff with Disney too, the grooming
Disney,
thing.
But also, Nickelodeon hired a lot of, offenders, pedos, all these guys.
That. This is like a more recent thing?
Yeah, it came out last year. There was a documentary. I think it was called Quiet on Set, and it was about, all these different people who are getting outed. And, it was pretty dark. So all these people got locked up. Yeah, it was crazy because people were getting assaulted. Drake Bell, he came out with his story.
Drake Bell talking about something. Yeah.
Yeah, so all these people were getting assaulted behind the scenes. Now it's all making sense, right? Because you see Amanda Bynes, allegedly she was messing with Dan Schneider.
But it's kind of like you look back, and I mean, I just know when I started acting, I was older, but the stuff that happened, you saw it happening on set. We didn't really think about it. It's kind of like I talk about the military when we got. I worked and I'm around a lot of veterans, and I'll talk about PTSD. We didn't call it PTSD when we got out. We all had it. We're all affected by something. And I'm not giving saying it's okay, for like the pedophilia and stuff. Right. But it was so common. It was part of the work back then.
Right.
And I hate to say that a lot of stuff, people got away with a lot of things.
Oh yeah.
And now I love that. I mean, I love TikTok. I love Instagram. The social media outlet is such a great platform to now make it, as long as they don't keep taking people down, that keep sharing the truth, like us.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great way to really go, hey, this is not acceptable anymore.
Yeah, it's holding people accountable.
You're gonna get called out. And I'm being a father. I mean, I was always protective. I had an episode with one of my sons. He was about 5 years old, doing a commercial, and the director. It wasn't so much a physical touch, but it was a verbal abuse, a verbal thing. And I'm a pretty big guy, and I literally said to the director, I said, if it were up to me, you and I'd go step behind the barn and have a little chat.
Mm.
And I took my son and I walked off. The next day, my agent calls and said, "Did you threaten a director's life?" And
wow.
I'm like, "No, not really." And they said, "Well, his attorney called and they want to file a complaint against you." I said, "Don't worry, it's good. I handle it. We're okay." But I just said to him, like, what you say to the children is really inappropriate in the way you're talking to them. They're kids. You got to treat them like kids.
Right. And then that's the thing. They're treating these kids like adults.
I got called out for it. Like, Josh is the asshole that, stood up for his children.
Yeah.
Or stood up for his son. But I said, well, we'll never work with that guy again. And matter of fact, I don't know if I think I hopefully messed his career up a little bit.
Yeah. He's like, wait a minute.
I just said, dude, you shouldn't be directing kids, man.
Yeah.
The way you talk to kids, the way he was so abusive, is so
I've seen
aggressive.
That.
Yeah. And
I've seen that.
I was wondering if you witnessed that as well. Because, but yeah, like I said, it's great that we're calling these people out. We're making them more, like the spotlight's on you. You can't really get away with stuff anymore.
No, you can't.
I think that's a wonderful way to, expose them.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think that it's not so much about exposing, right? Because it could be, a fine line to where it's like, okay, well, now we're just exposing any and everybody just for clicks.
Yeah.
So I think when it comes to showing what is right, what is wrong, it's a moving scale, but certain things we just can't accept, right? So looking back, we could have called, exceptional or whatever, but now it's just like, well, that's weird. We just got to call it out like it is.
And you have to look at it. If it makes you uncomfortable, if you're uncomfortable on set and you're a minor, that's even worse, then something needs to be done about it.
Yeah.
But I know the other side of it is when people are trying to expose celebrities or whatever, saying they did something to them 10 years, 20 years, 30 years ago, and they're bringing it up to become famous or popular or get
a
paycheck from it.
Yeah.
That's the whole other side. You go, okay, how do we filter that out?
Yeah, because you're going to wait 20, 30 years to say something. It's kind of like...
Well, why? What made you come forward now?
Right. And then you got to just question the motive, right? Do they want some money? Because then you're just as bad as them, right?
Exactly. You're just falling into that dark pattern.
And that's the thing with going back to Diddy, we're finding out that Cassie isn't as innocent as she said she was. She's telling these escorts to do horrible things to her. And it's just like, well, now you've been paid out not once but twice, and now you're, saying all these different things that you're orchestrating things with him, and you're like, wait a minute, so you're not so innocent.
There's always two sides, at least two sides to every story, right?
Well, it's two sides and then the truth.
Yeah, right. That's a good point.
So, everybody tells their side, and then what really happened.
And, you know, other than you have some video and whatnot and the hotels and stuff with her, right? Wasn't that the one?
Yeah.
And then he's beating her and whatever.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, that's proof right there. But then you go, okay, what is her part in this?
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, she was with him for a long time.
Right.
Over a decade.
And she kept going back. So
kept going back.
What's up with that? Yeah. So there's a whole other side to that.
Yeah.
All right, let's lighten it up.
Lighten it up.
Diddy's get enough attention out there. We don't need
I think it's a distraction too.
Well, okay. That's
it's layers.
That's a great point because I think, and I always say this, you know, when I'm talking about this subject, I think if we want to get rid of, you know, school shootings and beatings and, you know, abuse and child molestation and all that, let's stop talking about it. Let's stop giving it front page news.
Yeah.
Let's talk about stuff that matters, like, you know, the stuff we're talking about and the real truth of what's going on in the world and what people need and how to affect them and make them a better person as opposed to and bringing us together as a country and not talking about this little distraction over here that and why are we letting that distract us? Because it sells newspapers, it sells media, it sells, you know, tickets, right?
Clicks, right?
So it's the same. And what's sad is they're still using the same you know, marketing ploys to get you to hooked into it.
Oh yeah,
you know
that's not going to stop.
They know the little hooks, and you're like,
yeah,
damn it, and you'll find yourself. I mean, I find myself like scrolling into something like, oh shit, what am I doing?
Yeah,
I gotta get out of
you got to catch yourself, right?
Yeah, because there's more. You know, there's more to life than, getting sucked into that.
Yeah, and that's the thing when it comes to your feed. I always tell people follow the right accounts. Is it educational? Is it nonsense? Is it bullshit? Like, because what you're taking in, it may just seem like a scroll, but your subconscious is picking all this stuff up, right?
Absolutely.
That's why it's called a feed. They're feeding you something to where they want you to either buy something, your subconscious taking it in. So
there's so many, and so many impressions every whatever. I don't know how many. Do you know the number? Like how many visuals or how many images are we seeing daily now? That
where it
used to be
thousands.
Probably tens of thousands, I would think, and it's so overwhelming,
right?
And it can totally get you off point, and where you're going. Well, that's a good segue for me because what keeps you focused? What keeps you motivated in that? Is sticking to your purpose.
To be honest, I just kind of go into what I'm interested in and thinking about my purpose. That's it. Like my purpose is gonna drive, you know,
what is
my
your
attention.
Purpose? What do you think your big purpose is? Like, is there an overall, or is it just?
I really believe to shed light, educate, and then help others as I'm helping myself, right? Because if I can't help myself, I'm good to nobody, right? So I mean, people always say, "Oh yeah, I want to help people and everything else," but you want to help yourself too, because you know it's a double-edged sword. To where if you don't, then you're no good to anybody, and you're probably going to damage that person's life, right? So you always want to help yourself so you can help others. So, but my purpose is to educate. I really believe that I do have a certain type of discernment that most don't, and I think that when it comes to learning things, we have to unlearn a lot of things and relearn a lot of things. I think we're going into a new era because a lot of shit that we've been told was lies, right? So we have to unlearn a lot of things. What happens when you put, a hard drive full of, tens of thousands of terabytes of something and you just load it up? You can't put anything else into it. So you have to, decompress it, drown it out, and then get rid of that information only so you can learn and put more information into.
It's almost like you have to unlearn what you've learned, basically, right? Yeah.
Unlearn and relearn. Right?
I just saw Sean Ryan. You know Sean Ryan? His podcast. I just saw he was doing an interview with Tucker, I believe. And he said something like, I believe, this is his quote, not mine, but he said, I believe everything we've learned is a lie.
It is.
Everything was made up.
It is.
And, I talk about this all the time in my household and being where I was in the military and seeing the stuff behind the curtain and stuff coming straight from the Pentagon and a lot of it I don't remember or I could talk about, but the truth is really ugly, it's really brutal.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we cultivate a a safe place for people to view that and understand it. You're doing a great job with that because the way you're breaking down these scenarios and the lives or the backstories that we've all been programmed to receive. Basically, right. It's a one. That's the way we have to bring it together.
For sure.
I think that's
and it comes to like one example, right? So they just declassified some documents about Hitler and everything else. They're like, oh, by the way, Hitler didn't die where we said he died.
He went to Argentina for 30 years or something. Yeah.
Right. So now history has changed. You're like, wait a minute.
And the skull is a woman, right?
Yeah.
It was a woman's skull that they used for his burial.
Lies.
Right.
Right. So that changes a lot of things. Right. So now there's a whole, like if you look into South America, there's communities like Nazi communities.
Yeah.
If you look down there.
Well, I can't remember. I saw some stuff on that too. How many thousands or tens of thousands of Nazis moved there, basically, right?
Yeah. I mean, besides the ones that we moved to America,
right?
Operation Paperclip with, Wernher von Braun and headed up NASA and everything else.
Yeah.
A lot of them went down there with Hitler as well. So
the high jump, Operation High Jump?
I know a little bit about it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's an interesting too, because that's Antarctica. And the reason it's closed, no fly zone,
right?
So that's a whole bigger, flat Earth subject,
right? Isn't it funny with Antarctica? Think about it with Antarctica, the Antarctica Treaty that the world can't agree on, like anything except for that.
Yeah,
right.
Everybody, I remember in the military, I learned about it. I'm like, that's interesting because everybody has a flag there. Every country has a flag there.
What's going on there?
Where else? I mean, Greenland, there's some of that because Greenland's an underground base, but Antarctica, everybody got involved. So
everybody got involved. They're all saying, hey, we can all agree on this. We have wars going on, but we can agree on this. So what's going on down there?
So it's bigger than we may never know.
For sure. Definitely.
I mean, until somebody gets that drone flying out there far enough.
Yeah.
And we can get some better images and some better views of it. It's still vastly unknown.
Yeah.
Right? So
you can only go down there if you're like a researcher or a scientist. You just can't.
And you can only go to certain areas, right? So it's like, how do you go beyond the ice wall or beyond? It's virtually impossible at this point.
Right.
Which I don't understand. I'm thinking, why can't you just fly down there?
And then there's like a massive, massive hole, Beardmore Glacier. You know about Beardmore Glacier?
For sure, yeah.
So it's like a massive hole. It's like 5-6 football fields long.
Yeah.
And stuff is flying in and out of there.
You mean the one that's covered up on the Google Maps?
Yeah.
That one?
Yeah.
The different colored weight on there?
Let's go.
Dude, I'll go down. I'm with you. I'll go down that hole.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know that.
And
so it's like pyramid shapes down there.
Yeah, pyramids coming out.
Yeah.
Well, Byrd said, Admiral Byrd said, hey, there was some land and it was tropical and all these different things. He's like, there's enough resources that's bigger than the United States or bigger than North America, or bigger than the United States.
Interesting.
And he's like, there's plenty of land down there. There's plenty of stuff down there. We haven't even tapped into it.
Right.
And then, of course, that all gets shut down and everybody puts a little flag over there and goes, hey, you can't, there's no fly zone. We can't do this. And then, of course, the other maps were created and distorted and changed. And
yeah, which I think like the maps we're looking at now are way off. Like
they don't even match up.
They don't even make sense.
Old history, it's like, and I was telling my girlfriend this. When I was in the Navy, so when we sailed at sea, we used a topical map. It was a flat map.
Okay.
You could see it was like the UN map, it was like that. I'm not sure the name of that map, but that's the map we used to sail with.
Really?
So we didn't didn't use a globe.
There you go.
So that makes a lot of sense.
That does make sense.
And if we can get into that. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Get into flight patterns and all that stuff. But
so what's your official theory on that then?
Which part?
As far as Earth being flat,
wow,
globe,
you're gonna make me say it.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a. I definitely do not believe we're a spinning ball. It makes no sense to me.
Okay.
Because the stars never move. You can look up in the sky and you never move. You can take off and land in the same area. And if you were spinning Earth, you would be thousands of miles off, right?
Right.
So that just doesn't make sense to me. as far as the other part, I would say the closest thing that I've come to is more of a like a sphere or a half of a, like I always look at it as like a snow globe.
Okay.
That's what it feels like. That's what.
So you're thinking more of a sphere, kind of like a elongated sphere.
Yeah,
kind
I
of.
don't think it's. It's probably not 100% flat, but I believe it's rounded in some way, and we do have a firmament. We do have a dome. Gotcha. I mean that's been proven, and that's pretty obvious. But
yeah. Well, going back to Wernher von Braun, with Operation Paperclip and everything else, where he headed up NASA, he's one of the godfathers of NASA. That's actually on his tombstone, where it says
the firmament something, right?
Yeah, Psalms verse from the Bible saying, God's handiwork in the firmament.
Yeah, and how many places in the Bible, if you follow the Bible, if you believe in the Bible, then there's, I think it's repeated at least 6 times or 12 times or something that you see it in there.
Right.
And they talk about the firmament, and they talk about you can't leave the earth, and they talk about. Yeah, that's a whole other. We got another show to do. You want to get into that one? That's a whole other. That's a whole other program
for sure.
But so what did you expect when you came in here today? What were you thinking? What'd you come in with?
You know what? I'm always open. I expect the unexpected. So whatever is thrown at me, I'm ready for it. I think that, I didn't know that. I knew you had some military background. So I wanted to, see more of that.
Thing.
The CIA, I didn't know that.
That's cool. That's a cool thing we have in common, or that we have a connection to that. 'Cause, I'm long way from that now. And, you know, that's a long time ago. But yeah, they definitely, we have a phone. We have a tracking device on us. Yours is right there. Mine's in my pocket. They always know.
Yeah.
There's no way of.
They know where we are. They can hear everything.
And they, social media anywhere. So.
I always tell people that, these devices like Alexa, Siri, they're always listening.
They're always
It's
listening.
not that you just say the name and then it cuts on.
And wait till you go on your phone now. It'll be something will come up that we talked about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
You'll be like, oh, I didn't search for that.
And you know what's even scarier? So the person who developed the technology for Alexa says he doesn't use Alexa at all. He said he doesn't have it in his house. He doesn't use it at all. Nothing.
Smart. Yeah.
Same thing for.
There's blocks you can put on FTN or something, whether the block you can put on your phone and stuff like that.
The same thing with TikTok. The owner of TikTok says
they don't use TikTok.
They don't use TikTok.
Yeah.
He don't let his kids use TikTok. Nothing. So these people are creating these things.
Right.
Don't use their own technologies.
There's something to say for that.
Right.
So we're gonna wrap it up. We got a couple minutes left, and I just want to say thank you to you.
Of course,
Maverick Bailey, you're awesome. You're interesting character, and I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
That's why I want to make you my first guest. Thank you for initiating this new thing. As we look
set
around.
Looks great. I love it. I definitely gotta come back.
It's been something in the works for me for a few years, and I had a previous podcast in LA, and 5 years ago, different name, different subject matter, and all that. And I just wanted to branch out and have something, an outlet to where we can get people talking, and kind of like what you're doing, kind of like what you're talking about. I want to bring Americans together as American. I want to bring people together as people,
right?
Without a political agenda. I always say, you don't have to be political to be patriotic.
Right.
We're patriots. We're Americans. We're born here, and this is our country.
Right.
It's not to give away or throw away, or to let other people come in and take over.
100%.
I think this is and if we can stand up as a people and as Americans again, which in my childhood I felt that's what we had more of.
Yeah.
And so, the newer generations, we've lost a little sight of that.
Yeah.
And that's why I love that you're breaking down these, we call them conspiracy theories. You're breaking down these facts and letting the people have it and being truthful about it. So thank you for what you're doing. That's pretty awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I definitely got to come back. Thank you for having me.
We'll come down the road. We'll definitely have you back. I
sure.
love it. Just want to say thank you to my sponsor, Veterans Move. It's a national moving company. And if you guys want to be a sponsor, if anybody wants to be a sponsor, it's on our links on Instagram, on TikTok. It's the Carmichael Effect or at the Carmichael Effect. Don't forget my buddy here, Maverick Bailey. It's the Maverick Approach, not the Maverick, just Maverick Approach, right? So I always say
it's either or.
Yeah,
either or.
You'll find it.
You'll find it.
You'll find it. He's very popular. He's moving. He's really making some stuff happen. And I'm proud of you, man. I've watched you. I've watched you grow in like a year's time, and it's so cool to see that happen. And once again, I'm grateful for you being here. So
thank you. Appreciate it. Definitely got to do this again. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you again.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you.